So, Prime Minister, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, has named his cabinet. Here to give his take on the key players and what it all signals for the country is social commentator Sondre Roden, who joins us now via Zoom. Sondre, good morning.
Morning, Sondre. What going?
Good morning to you. I'm good. How are you guys?
We are well, thank you. Okay, so at first glance, second glance, third glance, any surprises for you?
No, I don't think I have any surprises at all, actually. I expected a number of these things to happen. I expected Andrew Wheatley to be back. I expected Robert Montague to be back. I did expect that we were going to see some movement happening with that Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs, because if we're to use a metric to judge based on the progress that we've seen, of course, if I was in charge, for example, I would say there needed to be some shifting, some changes. I don't know if the minister was going to be changed or they were going to twin it with justice, but as some people predicted, it was twinned with justice. Of course, other people will be questioning now what happens with former Minister Mallohu Fort, who had that Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. But here, we have not seen the constitutional changes, and we are not seeing her in the cabinet now. We're not seeing her even as a state minister. So that might be an indication, because before elections, I don't know if a lot of persons remember, but there are concerns, there are questions about, her viability in her own constituency. And the Prime Minister was very adamant when talking to his team, saying that ensure that your people are happy and that you're serving them effectively. And she had some challenges in her constituency.
Yep. Sondre, some people might say same old, because really, Matthew Samuda, Minister of Water, that's a slight change, because he was dealing with water before. He's the only one in the cabinet, apart from the ministers without portfolio, Audrey Marks, Andrew Wheatley, Robert Montague, and Robert Morgan. So it's kind of the same thing, no?
Right. So what I expected and what I think I predicted before was that we were going to see a return of the slate that existed, and then we'd see transitions. Now, the transitions are coming from the state ministers, not all of them perfectly aligned, I would say, just yet, but, the Prime Minister has elevated a number of MPs, I think about 12 of them, to state ministers, and that gives them, 11, 12 of them thereabout, that gives them the opportunity to learn and understand governance and understand the roles of being ministers. Why? Dr. Chang said, hey, I'm going to leave in probably 2 years or by the end of the term. A number of other people, of other ministers that exist now, they've said, we are going to leave. This is our last term. We do expect in 2030 that we're going to see probably a shift in the slate of candidates for the Jamaica Labour Party. And the Prime Minister has been talking about renewal. So I said before the cabinet was appointed that I expect more of the same, and then a lot of appointments for state ministers. So we see Rhoda Moy Crawford coming in education. We see Tova Hamilton coming in tourism. We see Currency Morrison coming in culture, gender, entertainment, and sports. So yeah, that's kind of what I'd expected from the Prime Minister.
Why did you expect that Wheatley would be back?
Well, when you look at Wheatley's case and even Montague's case, both men, despite the cloud and the judgment and the perception around them, none of them have been officially charged for anything, and their cases would have been closed by the responsible entities. For Robert Montague, there were questions about whether or not he would win, and he won, and he did so convincingly. For Andrew Wheatley, he has a doctorate in science. He's literally the czar of science in the Jamaica Labour Party, and he's a deputy general secretary that was instrumental in Jamaica Labour Party's campaign. We have to remember that even though cabinet ministers are a part of the governance infrastructure, there's a lot of politics involved. If that person that you're thinking of as the leader of your party, they win their seat convincingly, and he's a chairman of the Jamaica Labour Party. There are some
Being
question marks if
something.
he's not in the cabinet. And
Gotcha.
the fact that he is now in says that what people suggested that it would look some type of way, of course, if he's not in, that is something that holds. Andrew Wheatley as well, he spent about 7 years or so out of the cabinet and he is back in. So that says to you that he also paid his dues and they were instrumental enough in the campaign. And the Prime Minister now had to look at them and say, well, I have to put you somewhere. And he placed them in one in the ministry that falls under his portfolio and the other in the office of the Prime Minister.
Yeah. In your thoughts before, did you think that all of these ministers before did enough to keep their position?
That's a tough one, Never. That's a tough one. What do we consider as enough? Because in my estimation, there's so much more that could have been done. Where I will give good marks is on the point of the narrative around fixing the ills of the past to progress to the future or building Jamaica. I'll give credence to that. But as I consider it as enough, I don't know. I don't think so. I think there's a lot more that we can do as it relates to policy. And I don't want anybody to lose sight of what I'm saying. Yes, the ministers have worked in their various portfolios, but do not forget that the major role of our governance infrastructure is policy implementation and policy direction. I think we can see way more from our ministers as it relates to policies being implemented and at faster rates, which is why the Prime Minister appointed Ambassador Audrey Marks to see how we can speed things up, because that might give the wrong impression of some ministers as well, because a lot of things are in the pipeline being planned, and then you don't hear about it. So it might skew your perception of what they're doing. So yes, a lot of ministers have done good jobs. Could we see more? Definitely, we could see more. And I'm speaking specifically around that aspect of policies.
So a follow-up question to my first question, then are you then surprised that some of these who you thought maybe could be doing more were put back in their position?
Not really, on the basis of continuity, because for persons who could be doing more, he has twinned them with state ministers to say, listen, learn, understudy, and they've indicated that they are literally on their way out. Do I think he was going to do a great shuffle now? No. Do I think he will do a great shuffle later on in the term? Definitely,
Yeah,
because now
succession
it's a
plans in
third
place.
term.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a third term, and now if you literally don't step up, the Prime Minister now he's within his right, setting his legacy to say, hey, if you're not delivering on these priorities that I've given you, I'm gonna have to put somebody else there. I think that's what we'll see throughout the term.
What are your thoughts on the senatorships?
Again, not shocked. Christian Tavares Vincent, we saw that little thing happening there with him and Delano Seavert and the party pulling back both candidates, Delano Seavert getting the seat. If you're a commentator, you know the politics, you expect that something has to give. And as a result, we expect Christian Tavares Vincent to come in the Senate. Keith Duncan, we've been hearing rumors for a while, and Keith Duncan had to come out and dispel the rumors. But with Don Webby leaving the Senate, we always have to remember that Jamaica Labour Party is that party that panders to all groupings, including the business community. I suspected they'd go for somebody with that level of clout, that level of influence, that level of business knowledge in the Senate. Normally persons who are not so political, because Don Webby wasn't really heavily political, but he was more about nation building.
That's
Keith
right.
Duncan would be a like-for-like change for Don Webby.
That's an interesting use of, you said pander. Are you sure that's the word you wanted to use?
Well, yeah, that's the word I want to use,
Okay.
because if you talk about economic growth, Simone, you talk about employment,
Yeah.
and the business community must employ for us to grow. So the Jamaica Labour Party has to continuously interact with the business community in that way to get them to be driving the growth that we want to see in Jamaica. Because if that doesn't happen, then we're continuing on a stagnant trend.
And the opposition senatorships before we go?
Yeah, the opposition centerships, we did have, I think, there's some interesting ones on the opposition side. I did expect to see Cleveland Tomlinson in. I did expect to see Keisha Anderson in. I did not expect to see Ramon Small Ferguson in, which is good because he brings in that business and finance experience on their side, which is a positive on their side. Do I think, and of course, Dr. Maziki Thame, there was talk of Alan Bernard, but what I think is that the opposition also missed an opportunity to bring in some more of their younger people to show their own renewal and what they plan to do for the future. And that is something that I think they could have probably, shifted out one or two other persons. Lambert Brown has served a while. Maybe they could have shifted him out for another younger person that has that national profile. But, it's the opposition leader's privilege to pick the Senate. So, they'll have to pick a trade unionist at some point, and they chose Lambert.
All right,
Sandra, thank you.
Yeah, obviously very prepared for this interview. Thanks, Sandra.
Prepared, Sandra.
God bless.
All right, thank you, Simone. Thanks.
Thank you.
Social commentator, Sandra Roden.
Politics and optics and all the rest. After the break, we're taking a look at Capri's education scorecard. We have that after we take these messages. Soon come.